Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to Windows Server 2012. Deploying Active Directory IaaS in Windows Azure. Before I jump onto this topic, I must first explain what I'm talking about. Windows Azure is a Microsoft cloud platform that allows you to put your server data into the cloud. Deploying Active Directory with IaaS means you are using virtualization for the deployment. So to put this in a nutshell, when doing this type of install, it's actually not too far off from the install you already did. You create a virtual server and then install Active Directory. Then you upload that virtual server to the cloud. Now that you understand what this section is about, let's talk about some of the tasks that are different from the normal way you install Active Directory virtually. There are three main differences when installing Active Directory IaaS on Windows Azure. Windows Azure virtual machines may need to have connectivity to the corporate network. Microsoft states that you don't have to have connectivity to your on-site corporate network, but you will lose functionality. Thus, Microsoft recommends that you set up connectivity, and to do that, you must use Windows Azure Virtual Network. Windows Azure Virtual Network includes a site-to-site or site-to-point virtual private network VPN component capable of seamlessly connecting Windows Azure virtual machines and on-site machines. Static IP addresses are not supported on Windows Azure virtual machines. Normally, when setting up a server, we all use static IP addresses. This is actually required on a DHCP server, DNS server, and so on. But when you deploy Active Directory IaaS in Windows Azure, you must use dynamic TCP IP addressing, and this requires that you set up Windows Azure Virtual Network. IP address for Windows Azure virtual machines are attached to Windows Azure Virtual Network, and that TCP IP address persists for the lifetime of the virtual machine. Because of this, the Windows Server Active Directory requirements for IP addressing are met, and the requirements for DNS are also met if you want the server to have both roles. Windows Azure allows for two distinct types of virtual machines, as you will learn in Chapter 9. The selection of the virtual machine disk type is important when deploying domain controllers. Windows Azure allows both operating system disks and data disks. Most of the time, you will use data disks when installing Active Directory on the virtual machine. Data disks use write-through caching, guaranteeing durability of writes, and this is important to the integrity of any Windows Server active machine. There are some other factors of which you should be aware when choosing your disk type. Please check Microsoft's website for more details when choosing a disk type. Verifying Active Directory installation. Once you have installed and configured Active Directory, you'll want to verify that you have done so properly. In the following sections, you'll look at the methods for doing this using Event Viewer. The first and perhaps most informative way to verify the operations of Active Directory is to query information stored in the Windows Server 2012 or to Event Log. You can do this using the Windows Server 2012 or to Event Viewer. Exercise 3.4 walks you through this procedure. Entries seen with the Event Viewer include errors, warnings, and informational messages. Exercise 3.4, viewing the Active Directory event log. Open administrative tools by pressing the Windows key and choosing administrative tools. 2. Open the Event Viewer snap-in from the Administrative Tools program group. 3. In the left pane under Applications and Services log, select Directory Service. 4. In the right pane, you can sort information by clicking column headings. For example, you can click the source column to sort by the service or process that reported the event. 5. Double click an event in the list to see the details for that item. Note that you can click the copy button to copy the event information to the clipboard. You can then paste the data into a document for later reference. Also, you can move between items using the up and down arrows. Click OK, then you are finished viewing an event. 6. Filter an event list by right-clicking the Active Directory service item in the left pane and selecting Filter Current Log. Note that filtering does not remove entries from the event logs. It only restricts their display. 7. To verify Active Directory installation, look for events related to the proper startup of Active Directory, such as Event ID 1000, Active Directory Startup Complete, and 1394 attempts to update the Active Directory database are succeeding. Also, be sure to examine any error or warning messages because they could indicate problems with DNS or other necessary services. 8. When you finished viewing information in the event viewer, close the application using the Active Directory administrative tools. After a server has been promoted to a domain controller, you will see that various tools are added to the administrative tools program group, including the following: Active Directory Administrative Center. This is a Microsoft Management Console MMC snap-in that allows you to accomplish many Active Directory tasks from one central location. This MMC snap-in allows you to manage your Active Directory services objects, including doing the following tasks: reset user passwords, create or manage user groups, create or manage groups, create or manage computer accounts, create or manage organizational units, OUs, and containers, connect to one of several domains or domain controllers in the same instance of Active Directory Administrative Center, filter Active Directory data. Active Directory domains and trusts. Use this tool to view and change information related to the various domains in an Active Directory environment. This MMC snap-in also allows you to set up shortcut trusts. Active Directory sites and services. Use this tool to create and manage Active Directory sites and services to map an organization's physical network infrastructure. Active Directory users and computers. User and computer management is fundamental for an Active Directory environment. The Active Directory users and computer tool allows you to set machine and user-specific settings across the domain. Active Directory module for Windows PowerShell. Windows PowerShell is a command line shell and scripting language. The Active Directory module for Windows PowerShell is a group of CMDlets used to manage your Active Directory domains, Active Directory lightweight directory services, AD, LDS configuration sites, and Active Directory database mounting tool instances in a single self-contained package. A good way to make sure that Active Directory is accessible and functioning properly is to run the Active Directory users and computers tool. When you open the tool, you should see a configuration similar to that shown in figure 3.3. Specifically, you should make sure the name of the domain you created appears in the list. You should also check the domain controllers folder and make sure that the name of your local server appears in the right pane. If your configuration passes these two checks, Active Directory is present and configured. Testing from clients. The best test of any solution is simply to verify that it works the way you had intended in your environment. When it comes to using Active Directory, a good test is to ensure that clients can view and access various resources presented by Windows Server 2012 or 2 domain controllers in the following sections. you look at several ways to verify that Active Directory is functioning properly. Figure 3.3, viewing Active Directory information using the Active Directory Users and Computers tool. Verifying client connectivity. If you are unable to see the recently promoted server on the network, there is likely a network configuration error. If only one or a few clients are unable to see the machine, the problem is probably related to client-side configuration. To fix this, make sure that the client computers have the appropriate TCP IP configuration, including DNS settings, and that they can see the other computers on the network. If the new domain controller is unavailable from any of the other client computers, you should verify the proper startup of Active Directory using the methods mentioned earlier in this chapter. If Active Directory has been started, ensure that the DNS settings are correct. Finally, test network connectivity between the server and the clients by accessing the network or by using the ping command. Joining a domain. If Active Directory has been properly configured, clients and other servers should be able to join the domain. Exercise 3.5 outlines the steps you need to take to join a Windows 7 or Windows 8 computer to a domain. To complete this exercise, you must have already installed a properly configured at least one Active Directory domain controller and a DNS server that supports SRV records in your environment. In addition to the domain controller, you need at least one other computer not configured as a domain controller running one of the following operating systems: Windows 2000, Windows XP Professional. Windows XP Home Edition cannot join the domain. Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, or Windows Server 2012 R2. Once clients are able to join the domain successfully, they should be able to view Active Directory resources using the network icon. This test validates the proper functioning of Active Directory, ensures that you have connectivity with client computers. Exercise 3.5, joining a computer to an Active Directory domain. Right-click the computer icon on the Start menu and click Properties. 2. Go to the section called Computer Name. On the right side, click the Change Settings link. 3. Next to the section to rename this computer or change its domain or workgroup, click the Change button. 4. In the Members of section, choose the domain option. Type the name of the Active Directory domain that this computer should join. Click OK. When prompted for the username and password of an account that has permission to join the computers to the domain, enter the information for an administrator of the domain. Click OK to commit the changes. If you successfully joined the domain, you will see a dialog box welcoming you to the new domain. 6. You will be notified that you must reboot the computer before the changes take place. Select Yes when prompted to reboot. Creating and configuration application data partitions. Organizations store many different kinds of information in various places. For the IT department that support this information, it can be difficult to ensure that the right information is available when and where it is needed. Windows Server 2012 R2 uses a feature called Application Data Partitions, which allows system administrators and application developers to store custom information within Active Directory. The idea behind application data partitions is that since you already have a directory service that can replicate all kinds of information, you might as well use it to keep track of your own information. Developing distributed applications that can, for example, synchronize information across an enterprise is not a trivial task. You have to come up with a way to transfer data between remote sites, and you have to ensure that the data is properly replicated. By storing application information in Active Directory, you can take advantage of its storage mechanism and replication topology. application-related information stored on the main controllers benefits from having fault tolerance features and availability. Consider the following simple example to understand how this can work. Suppose your organization has developed a customer sales tracking and inventory application. The company needs to make this information that is stored by its application available to all of its branch offices and users located throughout the world. However, the goal is to do this with the least amount of administrative effort. Assuming that Active Directory has been deployed throughout the organization, developers can build support into the application for storing data within Active Directory. They can then rely on Active Directory to store and synchronize the information among various sites. When users request updated data from the application can obtain this information from the nearest domain controller to host the replica sales tracking and inventory data. Other types of applications can also benefit greatly from the use of application data partitions. Now that you have a good understanding of the nature of application data partitions, let's take a look at how you create and manage them using Windows Server 2012 R2 and Active Directory. Creating application data partitions. By default, after you create an Active Directory environment, you will not have any customer application data partitions. Therefore, the first step is in making this functionality available is to create a new application data partition. You can use several tools to do this. Third-party applications or application-specific tools generally. If you are planning to install an application that can store information in the Active Directory database, you will receive some method of administering and configuring the data along with the application. For example, the setup process for the application might assist you in the steps you need to take to set up a new application data partition and to create the necessary structures for storing data. Active Directory Services Interface. ADSI is a set of programmable objects that can be accessed through languages such as Visual Basic Scripting Edition, VB Script, Visual C, Visual Basic.NET, and many other language technologies that support component object model COM standards. Through the use of ADSI, developers can create, access, and update data stored in Active Directory and in any application data partitions. The LDP tool, you can view and modify the contents of the Active Directory schema using LDAP based queries. The LDP tool allows you to view information about application data partitions. LDP.exe is a graphical user interface GUI tool that allows an administrator to configure lightweight directory access protocol, LDAP directory service. Administrators have the ability to use the LDP tool to administer an Active Directory lightweight directory services ADLDS instance. To use the LDP tool, you must be a member of the you must be an administrator or equivalent. Figure 3.4 shows an example for connecting to a domain controller and browsing Active Directory information. 3.4, using the LDP tool to view Active Directory schema information. NTDSUITIL. The NTDSUTIL utility is the main method by which administrators create and manage application data partitions on Windows Server 2012 R2 domain controllers. You can create an application data partition in one of 3 different locations within an Active Directory forest: as a new tree in an Active Directory forest, as a child of an Active Directory domain partition as a child of another application data partition. As you might expect, you must be a member of the enterprise admins or domain admins group to be able to create application data partitions. Alternatively, you can be delegated the appropriate permissions to create new partitions. Managing replicas. A replica is a copy of any data stored within Active Directory. Unlike the basic information that is stored in Active Directory, application partitions cannot contain security principals. Also, not all domain controllers automatically contain copies of the data stored in an application data partition. System administrators can define which domain controllers host copies of the application data. This is an important feature because if replicas are used effectively, administrators can find a good balance between replicated traffic and data consistency. For example, suppose that 3 of your organization's 30 locations require up-to-date accounting related information. You might choose to replicate the data only to domain controllers located in the places that require the data. Limiting replication of this data reduces network traffic. Replication is the process by which replicas are kept up to date. Application data can be stored and updated on designated servers in the same way basic Active Directory information is synchronized between domain controllers. Application data partition replicas are managed using the Knowledge Consistency Checker, KCC, which ensures that the designated domain controllers receive updated replica information. Removing replicas. When you perform a demotion on a domain controller, the server can no longer host an application data partition. If a domain controller contains a replica of application data partition information, you must remove the replica from the domain controller before you demote it. If a domain controller is the machine that hosts a replica of the application data partition, then the entire application data partition is removed and will be permanently lost. Generally, you do this only after you're absolutely sure that your organization no longer needs access to the data stored in the application data partition. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.